Before I talk about blockchain, I want to begin with a small memory. I still remember my first impression of copy and paste. The first computer I saw was probably a very Windows-era machine, with one of those big-headed monitors sitting there like a serious office appliance. To be honest, as a kid, I did not understand what most of it was for. But copy and paste was obvious. It felt like this huge machine had one useful superpower: take something from here, put it over there, and somehow the original was still there. So in my mind, the computer was almost a giant copy-paste machine. That sounds funny, but it was also the first time I felt the strange beauty of digital information. It could move, multiply, and remain itself. Only later did I understand why that mattered. In the physical world, sharing usually has a trade-off. If I hand you my notebook, I no longer have it. If a classroom has one copy of a document, everyone has to wait. Digital copying changes that rule. I can send you a file and now both of us have it. You can quote it, forward it, search it, edit it, translate it, or build something new from it. That is why copying and sharing felt like the first gift of the internet. They did not just make information faster. They made information less trapped by place, object, and permission. The real question is, after that gift succeeds, what problem does it create? When people say Web 2, the label can get confusing. What I care about here is more basic than the label. The traditional web became powerful because it made information easy to publish, copy, link, search, forward, remix, and discuss. A file could be sent. A post could be shared. A comment could start a conversation with someone far away. A good idea no longer needed to travel through a physical carrier. It could move at the speed of a network. That changed the shape of collaboration. Once information was cheap to reproduce and easy to link, people did not need one central organization to assign every task. Open-source software, wikis, forums, blogs, and online communities all showed the same pattern. People could build on shared information because the cost of passing it forward had collapsed. This is not something I want to criticize. It is one of the most beautiful things humans have built. The web made information feel less like an object locked in one place and more like a current that anyone could touch. The boundary does not appear because copying is bad. It appears because copying is incomplete. When information is only being shared, copying is enough. But when information starts to create value, the context around it becomes important. Who asked the question that opened the path? Who gave the reply that changed the direction? Which draft did the final version come from? Which discussion made the idea stronger? Which version is being cited? Platforms can record these things. A database can know the upload time, the editor, the thread, the revision, the engagement, and the identity graph. And to be fair, this is one reason large internet companies became so powerful. The open web made copying and distribution easy, but identity, reputation, permission, monetization, version history, and ownership-like records still needed someone to manage them. So platforms became the record keepers. They gave us accounts, profiles, feeds, timestamps, moderation, payment rails, and social graphs. That was useful. It made the internet easier to use. But it also concentrated the memory around information. The platform knew who created something, who improved it, who could access it, and what kind of value it created. There is also a very ordinary version of this pain. Every company wants its own login system. At some point, I feel like I have almost more accounts than hair. Single sign-on helped a little, and Google made this easier in many places. But the trade-off is obvious. The more one login becomes the door to your digital life, the more of your identity, access, and memory you hand to one gatekeeper. In other words, content could travel, but the authority around the content stayed inside the company. That is the deeper tension. The internet is very good at moving content. It is much weaker at letting identity, provenance, and the memory of contribution travel with the content. This is where the word ownership becomes easy to misunderstand. I do not mean that every idea should be locked down. I do not mean that copying should stop. Most information should stay fluid, open, remixable, and alive. But some information starts to carry social or economic weight. A research note may become the basis for a project. A discussion may become a decision. A draft may become public knowledge. A contributor may deserve to remain visible after the final object is published. In the physical world, ownership often means exclusion. This is mine, so you cannot take it. In digital knowledge work, the question is more subtle. It is about origin, authorship, lineage, access, rights, reputation, and accountability. The file may be easy to copy, but the relationship around the file is not meaningless. So the question becomes, can information remain easy to share, while the important parts of its origin and contribution history become harder to erase? This is the narrow place where blockchain starts to make sense. During the last crypto cycle, blockchain and Web3 were often described as the next generation of the internet. I understand why that phrase traveled, but I do not think it is precise enough. Blockchain is not better at publishing posts, serving videos, searching the web, or running a chat room. The web already does those things well. And to be honest, blockchain did not get this far because everyone was quietly reading distributed systems papers. Financial experiments, speculation, incentives, and very human desires pushed it into public view. We can see a similar magical narrative around AI now. The technology changes, fundraising mythology seems stubbornly reusable. But if I remove the banner, the point becomes clearer. The traditional web changed how information is copied and distributed. Blockchain changes who gets to maintain the shared state around valuable information. Once a digital object has value, the question is no longer only can people see it. It becomes which version counts, who contributed to it, who can update it, what rights, reputation, or value are attached to it, which claim came first and which came later. In the old internet, those answers usually live inside the platform's database. The platform gives you the interface, but it also becomes the final keeper of the state. Blockchain changes that center of gravity. A network can agree that a state change happened without making one company the final authority. It does not make every claim true. It does not replace law, taste, or human judgment. But it changes who can write the record, who can verify the record, and whether the record can survive outside the platform that first hosted it. So I would not say blockchain is the next internet. I would say it is one of the missing layers for the next stage of the internet. A shared state layer for valuable digital relationships. Not all information needs it. But when origin, sequence, rights, reputation, and participation matter, a private platform database is not always enough. AI makes this much sharper. When content becomes cheap to generate, the hard question shifts from who can write to where did this come from? Was it based on a real discussion? Who contributed to the thinking? Which source did the summary use? Which version did the final result come from? What was compressed, and what disappeared during compression? This is why provenance, verifiable credentials, decentralized identifiers, content authenticity, and content address storage all matter, even beyond blockchain. They are different tools, but they respond to the same pressure. In an AI-heavy internet, knowledge needs a trail. The important limit is that verification is not the same as truth. A credential, a signature, a content hash, or a provenance record can tell us that a claim is linked to a source, an issuer, a file, or a process. It cannot replace human judgment, but it can give judgment something to inspect. AI should help us summarize, compare, and refine. It should not silently erase the human path that made the knowledge possible. Alcheme is still early. It is an open-source DevNet preview with a website, a browser demo, and a working path from discussion to draft to crystallized knowledge. It is not a finished answer. The direction is specific, not timid. Use normal web systems where they are better, and use blockchain where public memory and shared state actually matter. So Alcheme is not saying every post should become an asset. It is asking a narrower question. When a group discussion becomes a piece of knowledge, can the important contribution trail remain visible? Can the final object remember more than the final editor? Can the proof survive outside one platform's permission? That is why blockchain became a natural direction for me. The internet's first magic was copying. The next problem is memory. Not memory as nostalgia, but memory as authorship, lineage, accountability, and proof. If Alcheme is trying to preserve how discussion becomes knowledge, then blockchain is not an aesthetic choice. It is one possible foundation for a more durable memory of contribution. One small disclaimer before I go. This video only represents what I think right now. If I keep learning and one day I no longer believe this, I will change my mind without hesitation. I do not want to be held hostage by my own narrative. So if, at this moment, the thought felt interesting, you can give it a like. Think of it as a receipt for temporary agreement, not a lifetime contract.